My name is Gary Lakes. I'm from Nicosia, Cyprus. I work with the European Rim Policy and Investment Council. I welcome you to this upstream portion of the conference. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate. I'd like to introduce the participants of this panel is Mr. Panagiotis Michalos. He's the former Secretary General for the International Economic Relations and from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Mahmoud Khagani. He's with Petroleum Development Strategy Advisor and member of the Iranian Association for Energy Economics in Iran. And Mr. Rudy Baroudi, who is from Lebanon. He is CEO, Energy and Environment Holding in Qatar, based in Qatar. This session was billed as covering the topics, not only the Hellenic upstream, but also the Adriatic, Montenegro and Croatia, and then, of course, the East Med. I'll give a brief summary of the upstream in the region, and then the speakers will come up and make their presentations. This is the Greek offshore right now, as it is. The round was opened, I believe, last November. It is due to close in May, I think. And Greece is offering 20 offshore blocks. And it's going to be very curious to see what sort of response Greece gets to this tender, this licensing round. Some of you may know that a few weeks ago, an onshore tender offering 3 blocks was only the only participants were Energean, which is a Greek company, and Hellenic, of course, another Greek company. And that round had been prompted by an inquiry from Italy's Enel Trading, who wanted to who expressed an interest in acquiring those blocks to the former Greek government, and that because of the EU regulations, they had to open it to an international tender. But because of the circumstances, people were wondering what was happening after the last election and Syriza coming to power, and they didn't know what the policies would be. There was only the 2 Greek companies that participated. So now it's going to be quite interesting to see because these are some deep water areas, and they're going to need some big players to bid on these. So hopefully they'll come in, they'll see that things are working out well for Greece, and the Greek offshore will get underway. Okay, we don't have anyone here from Croatia to represent that country. I'll just go over the facts that April 2014, Croatia opened a bidding round for 29 offshore blocks in the Adriatic Sea. January 2015. It selected preferred bidders for 10 blocks. Those partnerships were Marathon Oil and OMV, Croatia's INA, and Italy's Eni, and Rockhopper, small company. It hopes to award the blocks probably in April or May. Croatia believes there's about 5 billion barrels of oil equivalent in its offshore. Let's see, in February it received 7 bids for six of the blocks, and it intends to tender more in the future, maybe later this year. The country's local demand is 3 BCM, 3 billion cubic meters a year, and it produces about 2 of that. There's a lot of plans for Croatia as well regarding downstream work, particularly a pipeline, the Ionian Adriatic pipeline system, which I believe the next panel will discuss. Here is the offshore area for Montenegro. It opened a licensing round for 13 blocks in August 2013. It closed in May 2014. Last autumn, it announced that it received 7 bids on those 13 blocks. Again, that was Marathon OMV, ENI, and Novatek, and Energean, and Mediterranean Oil and Gas. Montenegro plans to do more seismic during 2015, and a second licensing round in probably 2016 if things go well. Here's Albania from the Adriatic. I'm afraid I don't know a great deal about Albania, but it is producing oil, I believe, and there are a lot of positive prospects. Here is Iran, a map of Iran. It is an energy giant in waiting, as we all know, and perhaps we'll discuss later with Mr. Kagani about what might happen should the negotiations with the P5+1 and Iran prove to be fruitful. This is Cyprus. Now, for those of you who have been following Cyprus, it's been a bit of an adventure. A few years ago, we were all throwing confetti in the air and banging on drums, and things have quietened down a little bit, and some people are actually sort of recovering from a hangover. But Cyprus has had there have been two wells in Block 12. There was the Aphrodite discovery well and one appraisal well. The Aphrodite discovery now is about 4.5 trillion cubic feet, and that's not enough to move forward on the LNG plant that Cyprus was so keen to have develop on shore. Now, these are the blocks assigned to Italy's ENI, or ENI, the block 2, 3, and 9. Now, at the end of December, ENI announced that its well in the Anasagoras plot came up non-commercial, and it was quite a disappointment because people were hoping that would get Cyprus back on the road and things would pick up again. And he's now drilling the Amathusa, and the results from that should be out. Let's see, I think by the end of this month, maybe mid-April, and hopefully there'll be some positive results from that one. After that, the drill ship, which is a Saipem 10,000, will go for recertification. So there'll be like a 3-month gap, and then ENI will come back probably in July and drill and start on its third well. ENI plans to drill 4 wells in the Cyprus offshore, and it's going to depend very much on how those wells go regarding this future of Cyprus. I'll give you a map here. This is a geopolitical map of the East Mediterranean, and as you can see, it's quite a busy area. Let me try to explain some of this. Earlier today, some of the ministers talked about the offshore areas, declaring the offshore areas. This map is part of it is based on the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, UNCLOS. Now, based on UNCLOS, the areas in red would be Turkey's offshore area. But you see, also there's an area. Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, this would be Turkey's offshore area under UNCLOS. Okay, but Turkey doesn't accept that. Turkey claims an area that comes down here, like this, and it comes around this way, and it actually, when you consider, it's a complicated story, but the Turkish administration has awarded to Turkish Petroleum blocks an exploration area that extends here far to the south of Cyprus. This is the location of Block 12 of Aphrodite Field, and so I mean that's just part of the complication. The Cypriot offshore, again, it's EEZ, would actually be this area here. And you can see in this area, the Greek and the Cypriot offshore areas actually connect. Here's the Egyptian offshore, which is coming back to life. There's going to be a lot of work there soon. There's been some recent contracts signed. Here we have the Syrian offshore, the Lebanon offshore, which Mr. Baroudi will elaborate on and discuss the situation there. This is a strip that is in dispute between Israel and Lebanon, and that's one of the issues that is discussed to some extent, I think, in this morning's panel about how to resolve some of these problems. There's also a little piece right here that Syria and Lebanon may have to have to discuss at some point. This is the Israeli offshore. The Israelis have got themselves in a little bit of a mess recently. Their regulatory authority, the antitrust office there, has decided that the holdings of Noble Energy and Delek constitute a monopoly for the Israeli market. And so they're trying to find out how to divide up these companies' shares in Leviathan, where there's about, I think, 22 trillion cubic feet, which is really quite a large one, and the Tamar field, which is about 9 to 10 trillion cubic feet. It's huge. I mean, you're talking about East Med gas. That's it, really. I mean, that's what you're really talking about for now. And so, because of the regulations, the lack of clarity, the legal problem that it's probably going to come down to, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go to international arbitration. The Noble has said that it's not going to make any more investments in Israel until all these issues are resolved. Now, it's complicated because Noble and Delek have signed letters of intent to ship gas to Egypt. There was the first letter of intent was from the Tamar field to ship gas by pipeline to the LNG plant at Damietta in Egypt, which is somewhere around here. Then they also signed, so we go from like Tamar, somewhere down here. They also signed a letter of intent with an Egyptian private firm called Dolphinus Holdings to send gas through the Egypt gas pipeline, which runs like this, down to the Sinai. Now, it's ironic because Israel used to receive Egyptian gas through the East Med gas pipeline. There was another deal signed to send Leviathan gas, which is around here, to the LNG plant at Idku. Now, all of that stuff is sort of on hold, but it really complicates matters for the companies in Egypt because those LNG plants are idle, virtually idle. And I mean, these are millions, billions of dollars worth of investment that are just sitting there. So recently, there's been agreement between Egypt and Cyprus to examine the possibility of building a pipeline from Aphrodite here to Idku somewhere. Idku's around there somewhere, I believe. And that would give, there's two LNG trains at Idku, and there's a possibility that Aphrodite might be able to supply enough gas to keep one of those trains going. If they could get gas from Leviathan, they might be able to keep both of those trains going. So, but that's a couple years down the road. So there's a lot in this map. There's a lot to discuss, and I think if there's any questions, we can talk to them later. In the meantime, I will let Mr. Michalos have the floor, and we'll take it from there. Mr. Michalos, if you would please.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me here today to speak to you. But a very special thanks to a good friend, Simos Tsomokos, because I believe you all know for many, many years, tirelessly, he creates all these venues for dialogue to take place between the public sector and the private sector, especially in times like these today, that we need dialogue, and especially around energy. As you all know, energy has become a very vital part of geopolitical stability and politics. Especially in Europe, we talk increasingly of secure and alternate sources of energy, supplies, of uninterrupted availability, and of course, of affordable prices. Countries like Greece and other countries in the Balkans and the southeastern Mediterranean, as previously mentioned, with our abundant natural resources and our strategic geographic position, the Balkans, Southeast European, Mediterranean, Greece. Our position in the wider region, we hold an important potential for diversifying Europe's energy supply and transit routes, in particular regarding the gas supplies. Year by year, as you have witnessed, things have changed rapidly. The Ukrainian crisis has put energy security at the top of the agenda and forcibly reminded Europe of its gas dependence on Russia. Europe's energy policy has had a central component, that of security and alternative sources of supply. Secure, sustainable, and competitive energy within the region is of fundamental importance to our economy, the Greek economy, the European economy, and a core goal of the EU policy. Thus, we need to work together with our neighbors, both within the European Union and within the proximity of our broader region. We need to see energy as synergy. Actually, this was the main goal of the former Greek government. During my service as Secretary General for International Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and in coordination, in excellent coordination with the Ministry of Energy, we put emphasis on making Greece an energy hub. Our main goal was to take advantage not only of the geostrategic position of Greece, but also of the fact that the Greek economy, after a long period of recession, had returned to a phase of stability and was about to achieve growth, which it did in 2014. We proved to everybody that our country was a pillar of political, economic, and geopolitical stability, and this was our main asset during the negotiations with all the key agency players in the region. I sincerely hope, if everyone is in the audience, from the current government, that the new Greek government will stay on track and will continue our strenuous efforts, having in mind that only a financially and politically stable country can become an energy hub. For us, the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, TAP, was the turning point. We started as an outsider in the summer of 2012. Years later than the competing project, Nabucco, but we worked very hard together with our partners in order to present the advantages of TAP. It was our persistence, our vision, and the political and financial stability we had created that at the end we achieved and convinced our friends the Azeris that TAP was the way to go. Our concerted action helped us to secure TAP and start planning for the broader vision, the energy security of the broader region. Our experience with TAP showed that when the numbers make sense, when we have financial and political stability above all, as we had accomplished by 2013, and the government decides to throw its weight behind a project, I believe that then success usually follows. Another key point for synergies involves European gas infrastructure and its potential development over the next 10 years. The idea of the vertical gas corridor that will exploit the capabilities of TAP and the LNG terminal at the Revithousa regasification terminal in Greece and other floating LNG terminals being planned will increase the flow of gas to Central Europe via Bulgaria and Romania. This is of particular importance. The vertical corridor will serve as a unified system of nomination and operation for those who would either require capacity on it or who will desire to purchase on it. It will facilitate trading and provide seasonal balancing with the operation of complementary storage facilities. The overall feasibility of the vertical corridor is evidenced by the many natural gas infrastructure assets that already currently are in operation, such as, but not limited to, the national grids, which will be connected by interconnectors, thus creating the corridor, south to north, the LNG reception point at Evithusa, or those that are being planned in the near future. This infrastructure development has the potential to further facilitate a liquid and competitive common gas market that will enhance security of supply by increasing gas optionality in our region. Ladies and gentlemen, the TAP and the vertical corridor are just two parts of how every Greek government should envisage Greece into the energy landscape of our broader region. The combination of the vertical corridor with TAP and the Greek LNG terminals will provide energy security for Central and Southeastern Europe before the end of this decade, by 2020. In this picture, one should add recent developments, as mentioned before, regarding the newly found reserves in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Israel, and Cyprus. Bringing these new reserves to the market will considerably affect the supply side of current energy politics. As you know, the options regarding possible transit routes are still open. Energy decisions, as you know, are economic decisions based on economic merits. But in such a sensitive area of the world, these decisions are also political. Otherwise, if there's no economic merit, married with political commitment, no international investor will put the required capital, which no state can afford or has the knowledge to manage. Thus, the new Greek government should express its strong political will to work on these projects and cooperate with all the key players in the region. I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, the basic parameters that give shape to a greater energy vision for Greece and the entire Central and Southeastern Europe. These parameters is what I believe will transform Greece into a regional energy hub. In closing, energy is an important area for economic growth and prosperity for the people of the entire region. Now more than ever, Central and Southeastern Europe need a future with a stable political and economic environment. Through energy, I believe it is within reach. The above-mentioned energy developments will contribute to geopolitical stability, energy security, and the prosperity of the region for decades to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Michalos. Mr. Kagane, would you go, please?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. So I'm going to present some new ideas. This was the slides that I used to conclude when I spoke in conferences such as this one in the past. And I presented Iran's position as a golden gate. And then I also suggested Greece as another golden gate for energy security for the West. Not only West, but the global energy security. I'm happy that ancient Greece diplomacy is now working today, and we have some sort of win-win discussions if a minority hardliners allow us to proceed. Hopefully they will be defeated. What I'm talking today is this forum is about energy security and cooperation. And I address this theme of this forum in the context of our upstream oil and gas. Obviously, we heard about East Mediterranean potentials, but with today prices, obviously, it is going to be very difficult for investors to develop some fields in Caspian as well as in East Mediterranean. That is why the problem of upstream oil and gas, when we look at the energy as a commodity, is obviously competition. Producers like Iran, Russia, East Mediterranean producers, they would like a security of demand. And consumers in the EU and elsewhere, they are looking for a security of supply. How can energy cooperation, therefore, becomes a reality? Perhaps you can answer that when you are discussing the financial issues later on. Prior my departure from Tehran, I consulted what I'm going to say today with a national Iranian gas company. And I am very pleased that this is one of the slides they allowed me to show in my presentation, because nowadays in a retired position, we are providing advisory services to Ministry of Petroleum and other government agencies who are nowadays dealing what we call it energy diplomacy. And this is new pipelines or existing pipelines of natural gas in Iran. And recently we have managed to get one of the South Pars phases to production, phase 12, which has increased our gas production by 100 BCM per year. The ideas that we discuss as NGO, now I'm an NGO on energy economic basis, we are offering Iranian authorities not to export gas as a raw material. Perhaps petrochemical industry can also add value to it. But one of the ideas we have presented, especially for Caspian region, huge gas reserves, is converting gas to power. And recently, Iran gas companies liked the idea, and they even publicly said they want to do it, and they have entered a negotiation between public and private companies in Iran and outside Iran. But they didn't say at what price gas is going to be supplied to the generation company. But again, one of NIGC directors who participated as a recent event in Ashgabat, which was sponsored by UN and Energy Charter, he suggested instead of gas pipeline, we can have electric cables, which in two ends, like gas pipelines, producers or generators require reliable and stable demand, and consumers require reliable and stable supply. And both require good contractual agreements and, of course, pricing. And then, secondly, energy efficiency. In Iran nowadays, one of the problems we are facing, we are saying, okay, we have increased our gas production, so we have a spare capacity for export. But as soon as we get to the point of export, suddenly we see domestic demand has increased, so the capacity left for export declines. So therefore, efficiency is now becoming a major issue, and the cheapest energy of all is energy is saved. Obviously now domestic prices has now been gone up, And we are facing some sort of difficulties, what is known as energy poverty. Some publics are now facing difficulty to afford for the price of energy domestically. And also the problem we are facing in Iran is our generation efficiency, which is very low. And so the more expensive carbon fuels become, it would be people making more profits in savings. And thirdly, to achieve both, apply the least carbon fuel cost principle, we need to minimize carbon fuel use for given output of electricity, heat, cooling, power. Reducing carbon fuel use benefits everyone, no matter that political or ideological differences. All nations have an interest in applying the least carbon fuel principles. What is the effect of applying least carbon fuel cost principle to infrastructure investment? Again, I leave it perhaps to you later on to discuss when we talk about financial issues. To generate power at higher efficiency, install efficient high voltage direct cables, links to reduce transmission losses in comparison with gas pipelines, of course, and other means, and will still be there when the gas is over, not there, gas is finished, but we still have power generated by other means. And another point which I would like to mention, and Iran needs also to consider these issues, is how to decentralize distributed local energy networks. A massive investment needed, of course, in renewable energy. And Dr. Ramazani, who is a good friend of mine, and he's one of top directors of NIGC, he said to me, we need to create a 21st century Caspian grid. And what is Caspian grid? Well, this is high voltage links, as you could see, and Turkmen gas, instead of having pipeline crossing Caspian, perhaps we can have high voltage DC current converting gas in Turkmenistan and going to Azerbaijan, Iran, everywhere. And even that principle can apply in East Mediterranean region, which we just heard. There are some difficulties, exactly as it is in Caspian region, from legal regime point of view. Obviously, in today's market, we have to consider, to develop all these gas fields, we need huge amount of investments. And in the regional and global market. So the idea is energy swap. Before coming here, I had a pleasure of meeting Ambassador of Greece to Tehran. And he said he had read my article in Tehran Times in this regard of energy swap and liked it very much. And I'm happy that he said that our foreign minister fairly soon will visit Athens. And also he told me for the first time after many years there will be direct flights between Tehran and Athens. So that is a good news for us, which we have established Greece-Iran Business Forum to develop business in these areas as well. So when I was at the Ministry of Petroleum, I pioneered the oil swap projects in the Caspian Sea, which you saw in the first slide. Unfortunately, previous government, for no reasons that was explained even today, they stopped that oil swap, which was damage policy to energy diplomacy of Iran. But gas to power swap is already in place with the Republic of Azerbaijan and Armenia. And I'm happy to say that I was, as Director General, responsible in policy making. In the past, I negotiated those contracts. So we heard today that either producers produce to compete each other or should cooperate. But if they see energy as a commodity, like what it is today, we are competitors. But if we see it as a base of cooperation, then energy is a service. To achieve this requires, obviously, we need multinational institutions and agreements, as outlined by President Rouhani in Davos. And he said, this is not the time a direct dialogue between consumers and producers seriously to be promoted. And the idea, for example, now in Iran, for upstream sector, we are going to introduce a new contracts. We claim these new contracts, which is called Iran petroleum contracts, are going to be competitors to Iraqi contracts. But they have not yet disclosed what is in it. They wanted to do it in a conference in London, and that has been postponed several times. But one of the problems we have in these new contracts, because our constitution does not allow what is underground to be owned by anybody. It belongs to the nation. So booking the reserves, for example, with potential investors is another dilemma they are facing in these new contracts dialogues. So the idea we have suggested, what we call it prepay, and this is also exercised. Rosneft and China, they did have an agreement for $85 billion prepay crude oil funding. As I said again, perhaps later on this afternoon in financial discussions, we can talk about how this prepay can become a reality. So gas to power swap and energy swap is a 21st century, in my view, solutions for our region's energy questions, security of supply and security of demands. Producers provide gas to the generators, generator provides to consumers, and then those who are also managing the project becomes part of the projects, rather than, because there is no credit available. We cannot go along and borrow money for these projects. So somehow what I'm suggesting, we are going to share our assets. And that is a new idea, in my opinion. But it's not new. In the centuries back, we used to share assets when there was no currency to exchange for these things. So we heard today from our Greek speakers that there were questions about public-private partnership. Perhaps new government has different policies from previous governments in Greece. But therefore, we need also to improve that relationship, in my opinion. Creation, for example, we also talked today about regional cooperation. Iran is a founder member, not only OPEC, but another organization we called Economic Cooperation Organization, which secretariat is based in Tehran. And 4 literal states of Caspian are member of that organization as well. So perhaps then through that organization, we can also create new ideas. A system of clearing and settling a new generation of energy swaps will be interest of any nations which finds itself excluded from existing financial systems. And I've said Greece and Iran has a lot to share to scratch each other's back. We have sanctions problems, they've got austerity problems. So we have dollar problems, they have euros problems. So settling, how to settle these energy deals is another issue, which I invite you to discuss this afternoon or later on, which is going to be, in my opinion, a good output of this forum. So we go away with a result. How to deal with energy trade? Do we need a new currency, or we should remain as dollar for energy denomination globally? So challenge of least carbon fuel cost energy transmission and generation technically is straightforward. I mean, technology is already available, so we know it. Recent volatility of oil and gas market makes conventional infrastructure financing and funding of infrastructure very difficult. I was just talking to Gary. This is very strange that Brent crude, which is not as good as WTI, is more expensive than WTI is. Why is the reason? Perhaps you know the answers. And so I invite you for new solutions, 21st century solutions for our 21st century problems that we are facing today. And that is energy swap, priced in dollar, euro, or reals, or any other currency. Let this solution be part of our outcome of this forum. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Kagani. Thank you. I'd like to now invite Mr. Rudy Baroudi to speak about the East Mediterranean.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank very much the organizer for keeping up after so many years, even over 25 years, to keep a constructive debate among a very important commodity, which is the energy. I have tried at the request of Mr. Lakes to change and to include some of Lebanon's major milestones that has been unfortunately gridlocked in a lot of political upheavals, and to show where we have started, where we are today, and how can we be part of the East Med and the success to our own first, the East Med, before being a European Union project of common interest. This one shows a satellite imagery of more or less the zones where the United States Geology has estimated that we have large and massive amount of oil and gas. We are talking about 124 trillion cubic feet of gas and almost 60 billion barrel of oil. In this relatively new map, it shows the regional analogs that are from 70 and 80 years old to the recent discoveries east, north, west, and south of Lebanon, but gives also this potential that Lebanon recent surveys reconfirm that we don't only have an offshore hydrocarbon potential, but we should have also a massive one on the onshore. Syria, as you probably know, in this zone, at the exception of Egypt, where oil was discovered in 1889, Syria has been having these sediments for the last 75 years. And most of the sediments and geological surveys have confirmed that, let me see if this, is this the light? Yeah. These ones, it shows, which I will show you at the different slides, that it's all coming east to west from all of the regions straight down to the Arabian Peninsula. The entire Eastern Mediterranean region may be on the cusp of a new era thanks to the emergence of massive oil and gas reserves, both onshore and offshore. Once production begins, the resulting energy savings and export revenues will directly enable several countries to realize historic economic and social gains, including Cyprus, Israel, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, Greece, and Turkey could eventually take part in some ways as well. Jordan would profit too by gaining access to the affordable and reliable energy whose absence has hampered its economical for generation. Last but not least, the development of this resource would offer the EU a new alternate source of energy supply to complement its current overwhelming reliance on Russian gas, one that is affordable to, close by, and inherently subject to EU-own business and environment regulations. All of this gas that is going to be tapped here we are already in Europe. We are no longer trespassing 7 or 8 countries. We are no longer paying transit and taxation toll fees. We are not under the mercy of any rogue state that could stop or not stop any energy flow. And the nice thing, which I will show you in a different slide, is that the distance between here and here is 100 nautical mile. Between here and here is around 85. Between Syria offshore and here, it's almost 60 nautical miles to the European border. For Lebanon, after something a slow start, Lebanon has made great strides to prepare itself for its new role as an oil and gas producer. A new petroleum administration has been established. Model production and sharing agreements that have been approved and done. And we are waiting now for all of the political hard parties to sit down and then to get together to approve them. Recently, the press has announced that the two Council of Ministers decrees are supposed to be passing in the next week or so before the launch of the proposal. Here, for somebody who would like to know the background and the history since 1937, I have given all of these data to Mrs. Vlashu to put on the website after the conference for your use. Here it shows you what I have just said, is that we are next to the Syrian 80 years old ENP, and it shows that we are within the boundaries of the largest, in this zone, Syria is the largest holder of crude oil by having almost 2.5 billion barrels in this zone, in the East Med. Let me go back to, we go to page 20. This is his historical seismic data that has been done since 1976 offshore. The onshore one, we have had only 7 dry wells, 1937, 1944, 1951, 54, 55, and 62. This one on page 16. This was 2 different studies that have been done in 44 years in difference. One is an onshore well in the south, and with another 2D seismic line that has been done in a different time at a different, with different technologies, and that have proven that they are co-related. Let me go back to this one. It shows you the different 2D and the 3D maps that the Lebanese government have done the last 12 years. The EEZ zone that we have is around 22,000 square kilometers, and it has basically all been done with the studies, and we have had almost 21 different IOCs and NOCs that have already bought the data. And most in particular, the only US major firm that came to bid and or pre-qualify, it's ExxonMobil. These are the pre-qualified operators with the different blocks, if somebody wants to know the sizes. These are the major firms that showed up: Total, Eni, Anadarko, Statoil, Shell, Chevron, Petronas, Impex, Exxon, Marx, and Petrobras. The following one, it gives you more or less a summary of what has been done. You will see the red lines. These are 2D seismic line that has been done by a UK firm. The yellow one is an advanced 3D and 2D interpretation of all of the geo data that has been done now by air. In the transitional zone here, it is basically the plug, according to geologists, that brings in the offshore and the onshore with 2,000 years of studies. This is the interpretation where they believe where we have crude, we have gas, we have mixed, we have both gas and the findings in some of the preliminary findings. It says that Lebanon is estimated to hold around plus or minus 750 million barrels of oil, onshore and offshore, and it is assumed that the country holds around 50 trillion cubic feet, I'm sorry for this mistake, of gas reserves. Let me go to page 30. That's a modeled map. This is just for illustration that you can see oil and gas is everywhere, and it is north of us, east of us, west of us, south of us, and we have not even started the ENP yet. How to get there? How to get there? It's a long way, but it is an achievable way. I have included all of the laws and the bylaws that have already been done for the people who are interested, just to know about the legal framework that has already been passed, and to show that we are ready for business. How do we get there? We get there, I believe, and I strongly believe that the only way to get there for the East Med to be a part of an integral EU roadmap is Cyprus. Why is Cyprus? We have a lot of major points that backs it up. First of all, Cyprus is in the middle of this massive wealth that is lying in the East Med. I was particularly happy to read in the press when Vice President Biden visited Nicosia last year. He said this island can and should be the bedrock of stability and opportunity for the East Med, for Europe and the East Med. This is true, but we have a lot of problematic circumstances and we have a lot of obstacles. For all of us, we all know that unfortunately with the Euromed, there is unfortunately the common thread is a failure to embrace cooperation. There is no cooperation, be it domestically, bilateral, or multilateral, as a means of advancing shared goals. And to compound the issue, some governments keep throwing spanners in the works by routinely violating international law. I guess the ambassador asked about Turkey. Why are we not talking about Turkey? Turkey is an integral part of the Euromed. Turkey is a major power in the Euromed, you are right. We respect that. We want Turkey to be part of the Euromed hub, but Turkey has also to respect the international law. They have, first of all, if they want to start throwing their warships into the Cypriot EEZ zone, they have, first of all, to go and sign the United Nations Law of the Seas. Like Syria did not sign it, Israel did not sign it, so let us, first of all, find a common ground where we can all meet and cooperate on one goal, is to be this thing and have this thing for the benefit of all of us. All of the countries involved, including their prospective customers in the EU, need to recognize practical priorities and get creative about how to achieve them. All sides share an interest in getting these resources to market in a timely, secure, transparent, environmentally and responsible manner. To do otherwise amounts to cutting off one's nose for the sole purpose of spitting in one's face. Cyprus and Greece figure to be key components of this process. Today, Cyprus is the only viable host, not just for the undersea pipeline that will carry the East Med to mainland Europe, meaning Crete, Greece, and Santa Focia, but also for the LNG plant whose output will be shipped to markets in East Africa and Southeast Asia. Greece naturally is a natural venue for landfall of the line, adding its own gas in 5, 7, 8 years' time to the mix and connecting all producing to the European grid, being to Bulgaria, Croatia, or to the west to the San Focia in Italy. Most importantly, Nicosia and Athens, along with their fellow EU members, and hopefully the United States and the UN, can play facilitation roles that could be decisive in ensuring that this energy flow becomes a reality and lives up to it. The latter part depends on getting Israel and its Arab neighbors to behave like de facto business partners, stop the war, the skirmishes and all, setting aside their differences to derive similarly but separate benefits by sharing facilities. Securing cooperation, even if indirect, among countries that have remained in a technical state of war for decades will require close mediation and other forms of difficult diplomatic footwork. Here again, Greece and Cyprus are ideally situated since each of them enjoys friendly relations with government on both sides. Instead of allowing the entire undertaking to be delayed and or limited in scope by the Arab-Israeli conflict, a creative solution that serves the economic interest of all parties could kickstart an unofficial process of confidence building that eventually helps solve the riddle of the Middle East peace. We also need to be proactive about another obstacle. Cyprus will be the linchpin on which the entire region is raised up by oil and gas revenues, and through which all of Europe will benefit in terms of lower energy cost, greater security. But first, all interested parties should help overcome the island nation's debt crisis, allowing it to resume positive economic development and be transformed into a strong and sustainable energy hub for the East Med producers and their European customers. To help Cyprus, to help Greece, we all know about the subprime. It went over the Atlantic, it hit Europe, and most recently it hit Cyprus and Greece. They are trying now to solve all of this, but Cyprus and Greece should now have the time to live, bring in more investment, and then the whole financial agenda, it should be moved into more positiveness and less haircuts. We have had enough haircuts here. Now, even from the most selfish of perspectives, none of the participants can reasonably object to a project that so clearly advances their respective individual interests. All producers of the East Med would gain direct access to one of the world's largest energy market, allowing them to massively increase the size of their economies, lift millions of people out of poverty. Cyprus and Greece would definitely reap added rewards in the form of significant construction activities, transit fees, and other planned spin-offs. Europe would rebuild its economic competitiveness on the back of cheaper energy, diversify its energy sources of supply, and see increased stability on the southern flank. When I say Europe could rebuild its economy competitiveness, is that with the high price of gas and high price of oil, Europe has not been able to do any growth in the industrial side. So whatever we are seeing now, the Brent at 60 or 70 or 80, this will not last for a long time. This will probably change in about 6 to 8 months' time, like every oil and gas peak. And if what any chairman said in Davos last month is that he expects in 2020, 2022, that the crude barrel could reach $200. $200 is a dead zone for any industrial plants today. Now, Turkey could host another transit hub, cutting its own energy bills and earning more revenues from its position as a pipeline and a transit hub, and should become an integral part of any solution and economic growth. The East Med and the Middle East as a whole would have a new chance to settle its dispute, empowering future generation to focus on domestic challenges instead of foreign enemies. Both the US and in the UN, along with the rest of the international community, would also profit from a lessening of the Middle East tensions that absorb so much of their attention and resources. Like I had mentioned, we are, the whole East Med. I mean, if you consider Syria offshore that has been explored now by Soyuz Naftogaz, they are at 60 nautical miles from the European gate. Lebanon is at 110 nautical miles. The Israeli fields, they are at 80. So why do I have to go 4,000 miles to Azerbaijan to go and get gas if I have gas next to my own church? The closer church could also do the miracles. Let me just jump now to, I am sure you have already seen this, or probably this will probably be discussed by some of our colleagues, the panelists tomorrow. Cyprus, or the East Med line, or the LNG at Vasilikos, before it should be, or it should be called, like the EU did in 2013 when Mr. Barroso accepted to fund the pre-feasibility study for a corridor enlargement. They said it's an EU project of common interest. First of all, let it be for East Mediterranean common interest. Let's see what is the most and beneficial in interest for us first. And then it is definitely, it is good for the Europeans too. Let me jump on page 4. This is the Vasilikos plan. I am sure you have seen it all, but if somebody wants to have it, Mrs. Vlashu will have the entire presentation. Some conferences today, they have asked me about the depth and the technicality, and we are in the Mediterranean, the 9th deepest sea. In all of the previous ones, there are a lot of firms that they have already done their work, and they are doing work at much deeper seas than our depth here, which is between 2000 and 2005. And now, let me go to slide 50. This is, you have already seen that with Mr. Lakes. This was the first feasibility that was finally funded by the EU, and you can see here the enlargement, which is now, it's called the East Med, which we hope will be shared with all of us soon. So to sum it up, it is more than just another commodity or subject. Or energy is the lifeblood of nations and the modern life styles to which their populations aspire. In this case, it might also be the lubricant that ends decade of hostility and brings about peace among several peoples and communities, i.e. the Palestinian Israelis, Lebanese Israelis, Turkish Greek, Turkish Cypriot, intra-Cypriot, Syrian Turkish, etc. The sooner that these resources are tapped, the sooner both producers and consumers countries can begin to reap the benefits of competitive energy to build lasting social progress, economic prosperity, and fight poverty. In short, both Europe and the East Med region have been given an unprecedented gift. We now have an historic opportunity to define our own destinies, and history will not look kindly on us if we fail to seize the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baroudi. Thanks very much. Indeed, the East Med is quite a complicated area, but it has tremendous potential. I wanted to point out also that Lebanon tried to, it actually launched its bidding round in 2013, and there were a number of domestic political problems that has kept it from going forward. As Mr. Baroudi showed in his presentation, there are, 12 major companies that have qualified as operators. Unfortunately, the cabinet has been unable to pass 2 decrees. One has to do with ratifying the blocks, boundaries offshore, and the other is the model agreement for the production sharing agreement. Mr. Baroudi, I've read recently that the Lebanese cabinet is attempting to get together to solve some of these problems, to actually pass those decrees. I mean, are we any closer?
Hello? Yeah. Well, first of all, before we talk about the Lebanese government, whether they have been able to approve these decrees for the blocks delineation, the whole country has failed to elect its own president. So, which is much more important than this. But the consensus is now is that the decrees for the ENP and the decrees for the delineation of the blocks should be passed either this Thursday, tomorrow, or the following one. This is one. They have also approved that they will draft the tax regime for the IOC, which is an important component, and they will launch the tenders, and it will not be awarded till a president is elected.
They're going to have to requalify, right?
No.
Is
But
there no requalification?
they will not be any new qualifications, because the firms that we have are, part of the best IOCs. Now, if somebody wants to get in, I think they will probably to look at it positively.
Yeah, they'll accept new
Yes.
bids. Yeah, Mr. Kagani, maybe by the end of this month we'll have some understanding as to where Iran is with the rest of the world regarding its nuclear energy program. If there's a positive outcome for these negotiations, what's the first step for Iran? How will it proceed to develop its vast energy potential?
Instead of saying that by the end of this month we may achieve some results, I think the signs are showing that we have already achieved some results, positive results, hopefully.
How's that?
And Iran has now expanded its energy diplomacy. Today, as we are gathering here, Iran president is visiting Turkmenistan. Obviously, Turkmenistan is a bit worried about its future because of the price of energy has declined, as well as investment that Turkmenistan needs to attract, and the markets that it has to direct its gas towards EU or China. Iran is offering some sort of good proposals for Turkmenistan and Central Asia as a general for the future. And I'm sure we are going to get back on driving seat playing our role in global energy security supply. And don't forget, Iran itself becomes an energy market. We are also a very large population, and if sanctions are removed, I'm sure many industries become activated or come to the production level, and they consume energy. That is why I'm saying that Iran as a golden gate to Caspian and Greece as a golden gate to Europe for energy supply, they stand for a very good cooperation possibilities with regard to oil and gas industry. Now I'm proposing new idea of energy industry rather than only oil and gas. So conversion from gas to power is going to be also a very attractive proposal, in my opinion. But to answer your question, if this, by the end of this week, there is some positive outcome of the discussions, in my opinion, we will have a new world to look into what everybody can do. But obviously there are always a minority, as we have witnessed in recent news, that these minorities' interest is totally different from majority's interest. Thank you.
Mr. Michalos, there are a lot of questions about the policy of the new government. I mean, if you were to advise the government, what policies do you think that they should stick with that Greece has had or adopt for the future, you know, considering Greece's position as in the region?
Thank you. I think I touched on this in my speech. I believe the new Greek government must realize that Greece's advantage is today its geopolitical situation, especially in energy, especially as a gateway, as mentioned, to Europe and especially Southeast Europe. Not only for transportation, as has been evidenced, and people have invested in it, but also in energy. And together with the reserves that we seem to have found in our own seas. Therefore, they shouldn't leave it in the background, this advantage that we have geopolitically. However, in order to exploit that, you must have stability. You must have economic and political stability, as I mentioned. I believe it's paramount. The success of the previous government in a very short time when it was elected in mid-12 was by fall of 12, we had regained our credibility in the world arena, in the European arena. We seem, unfortunately, to have lost that in the last few months. If we are to play a role as an energy hub, as a gateway to Europe and Southeast Europe, in all the sectors that we can do that in, I believe the policy, the overall one policy they must immediately turn the page on is to create stability, and now I speak as a private citizen, turn the page in the negotiation tactic with Europe. We should avoid any accidents, and it's critical days. For me, that's above all what the current government must do. If we overcome this short-term problem that we seem to be in, I believe then that everyone with their wisdom will see that it's the stability, economic and political, and will see the benefits of in the economy and the growth in terms of energy, transportation, and all the other sectors that we seem to have an advantage in.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Unless there are any burning questions from the audience, does anyone have anything? All right, we'll break now. It's 2 o'clock. I want to remind you that the next sessions should be quite interesting. It'll be dealing with the transport systems and the downstream infrastructure that's going to be needed to transport all this energy into Europe. All right, thank you very much. Thank the panelists and thank the organizers. Thank you.